My name is Cazhhmere. I'm a filmmaker, writer, director, born and raised in Halifax, Nova Scotia, currently based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Well, I'm from Halifax. That's where I was born and raised. I'm a Scotian, Black Scotian, ninth generation Canadian. I moved to Toronto preteenish, so I did like junior high, all that here in Toronto. My mom moved up here, My mom was a single Black mother from the hood in Halifax. My mom is university educated, you know what I mean? Like she went to Dalhousie, one of the most prestigious universities in North America. And coming out of university, there just wasn't a lot of opportunities for a young mid-20s single Black woman. So she moved to Toronto to seek better opportunity for herself. And that's what eventually brought me here. It was dope, to be honest with you. Like the environment in Halifax is a little different than I grew up in a Black neighborhood, predominantly Black. I won't say all Black, but 99% Black. You know what I mean? And it was amazing. It's like the environment and the experience of a Black kid growing up in Halifax is different than, say, Black kids growing up in Toronto. And it's because the Black Scotians were direct descendants of like the Atlantic slave trade, predominantly the Underground Railroad, and the wave of slaves that came from the islands, particularly Jamaica and Antigua. So I'm a descendant of the slaves that were based in Antigua and Jamaica. So I'm a descendant of the Jamaican Maroons that came over here. If you know your history, if you don't, look it up. You know what I'm saying? Learn about the Jamaican Maroons. And because of that, it's like, it's different. Our culture is different in the sense where, when you're Canadian and you're Black and you go to school, you learn about Black History Month every February. For like 4 weeks, they teach you about Black history. They teach you were slaves. Down home, we learned that one, they didn't just escape because Canada had slavery too. They don't teach you that in Canadian Black history. They just teach you that a lot of American slaves escaped through the Underground Railroad and came up here. You know what I'm saying? And that's how, if you're Black and you're Canadian, that's how you got here. But there were a lot of slave owners in Canada as well during the whole 400 years of slavery, right? So we know who we are and where we come from. You know what I'm saying? So it's like for us, that Black history that they teach you is not just, it's common knowledge to us because we learn it since we're born. We know about our struggle, our adversity, but we also learn about like who we are as a people, how strong we are. The history makers, the trailblazers, things like that. And then also I'll say like growing up in Halifax, it's different because, I'm a lover of music, and it's like music down home is like we grew up on jazz, blues, soul. As I'm born, I grew up listening to R&B, hip hop because I'm a product of the hip hop generation. We never listened to a lot of reggae, soca, calypso, dancehall that doesn't exist to us down there besides like Bob Marley. I always tell people like our environment in the Black communities down home is comparable to the Black communities like in the South, in the American South. It's a lot of like the equivalent of like Southern hospitality. In your neighborhood, everybody knows each other. You grew up with everybody. So it's like a lot of people are your family, but the ones that aren't your blood relatives are still your family because you grew up at everybody's house. The doors wasn't locked. We all played together. Our parents all grew up together. Our grandparents all grew up together, so on and so forth. So it's a very like tight-knit community. To this day, it's still the same. You know what I mean? My mom was 21 when I was born, and she had just, when I was born, we're 3 days apart, our birthdays, and 3 months prior to me being born, she lost her mother by a drunk driver, hit and run, hit my grandmother. She was crossing the street. She unfortunately lost her life, and my mother lost like the one person as a young first-time mother, the one person that teaches you how to be a mom. That's the setup for the situation, the cards that was dealt for my mother. You feel me? 4 months after I was born, my mother enrolled herself in university. Like I said, she went to Dalhousie. And then 4 years later, when she graduated, she realized there's no opportunities for a single Black mother with a university education in the city of Halifax, which is like a very like racially divided environment. So she moved up to Toronto to seek better opportunities. She left me there for like a year or so while she got a job. She ended up getting like a government job, and then eventually brought me up. And through the years, she ended up working her ranks through the labor field of government. And I just watched my mom fight for equality for people, no matter who you are. It's like I watched my mom growing up. She went to every rally, whether it was race rights, age rights, immigration rights, women's rights. Like if people's rights were being infringed upon, my mom was there fighting and advocating for those people. Me as a kid just watching that, not realizing the values that she was instilling in me. She never was that type of mom where she would say life lessons to me, because she was always doing. So I'm not that person where I'll be like, my mom always used to say to me, yada, yada, yada. It's just, I just know how to do. And watching my mom just champion for people, but also championing for herself as a Black woman sitting in rooms with predominantly white people and never diminishing herself or making herself smaller than everybody else in the room, always making sure that her voice was heard, are things that I learned from my mom. The thought of me being the odd one in the group was never thought in my mind, even though I always got asked. Throughout my entire career, I've always been asked, like, you know, it must be hard being a Black woman working in this industry. Tell me about that. Like, how do you navigate that? And I never really knew, and still to this day don't know how to answer it completely, because the main thing that I always learned from my mom, right, is you have a goal, you know what your purpose is, just get out there and do it. Don't pay attention to nothing else. Block out the noise. Scotia's got a lot of swag. Definitely, they got a lot of swag, a lot of charisma. You know, Scotians are smooth. You know what I mean? Like, a saying that we got down home is like, you know, if somebody says you looking good or something, they're like, you fine as frog hair. You know what I mean? You sharp as a tack, you know? And even just the way they say it, like even in the lingo, you see how it's smooth. You know what I mean? Like, they got this charisma about them that I think is like incomparable to any other Black community in Canada. You know, in Toronto, most of the Black communities are comparable to the Caribbean, because that's where the roots are. They're bringing their roots with them when they came to Canada, the Caribbean immigrants. And because a lot of our descendants in Halifax come from the American South, that aura is, we brought it up with us. You get what I'm saying? And so even the accent, I've been living in Toronto a very long time now, so my accent is diluted very much so, but you know, like that southern drawl, that twang, like it's in there when you go down there. Like any Black person I bring down home, they're like, where am I? You know what I'm saying? They're like, we're in Canada, you know? And then any Americans that I bring down there, they're like, yo, I feel right at home. They're like, these are my peoples, you know? They're like, this is like growing up in Houston or in Atlanta, you know what I mean? I'm a ninth generation Canadian, which a lot of people don't really understand what that means. Like, that means like I'm Canadian, my parents are Canadian, all four of my grandparents Canadian, all eight of my great grandparents Canadian, all 16 of my great, like, you know, keep multiplying. They're Canadian. Go back till you get 9 of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a ninth generation Canadian. My family's been here for well over 200 years. The Downeys, which is the last name that I bear, you know, my mom's dad, my grandfather, they're a legendary family in Canadian history, especially in Nova Scotian history and Black Nova Scotian history. They're known as the Fighting Downeys. You know, I got this boxing gloves tattoo right here on my arm because I come from a family of fighters. My grandfather was a boxer in the military. He's in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. His younger brother, my great uncle, David Downey Sr., he was a fighter. He's also in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. He at one point was the middleweight champion of Canada, and to this day, he's held the middleweight title longer than any other Canadian in the history of boxing. His son, Raymond Downey, aka Sugar Ray, He was a boxer as well. He's also in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. He was an Olympian. He fought for Canada in the heavyweight category twice. He went to the Seoul Olympics in Korea, which was late 80s. Then he went to the Barcelona Olympics in the early 90s. I think it was 92, maybe. That was the Barcelona Olympics, where he won a bronze medal for Canada. He lost to Roy Jones Jr. for the silver medal, but he made it up onto the podium with the bronze medal. That medal now, it rests in the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame, where he's loaned it to them to be on display. Our Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was a big fan of my grandfather. He used to attend a lot of the military fights, boxing matches that used to take place. So much so that 7 years ago now, when my grandfather passed away, the Trudeau family had a letter of condolences, like hand delivered to my family's homestead back in Halifax, the day that we buried my grandfather and sent him home, which was very nice and touching, and told. I know people don't think too kindly of our current prime minister right now, Justin, but on a personal levels, not political, but personal level, he's kind of still my guy because, you know, the letter, he told stories about how he remembers his dad, at the time the prime minister, Pierre Trudeau, taking him up to the army base. And this is one of the there's many army bases in Canada, but this is one that's like way, way up north in like the Arctic where it's cold and there's snow going on. And he just told a lot of stories about how he just remembers his dad taking him, and his dad would sit down and talk boxing with like my grandfather. And my grandfather was also a chef in the military, so he would, you know, cook special meals for Justin because, you know, kids are kids, so they don't want to eat the foods that the adults are eating. He just wanted a burger and fries and stuff like that. So yeah, like my family were known in Nova Scotia and across Canada for boxing. But then we're also known for other things, you know, like politics. My great uncle, one of my grandfather's other brothers, Graham Downey Sr., he was the first black deputy mayor of the city of Halifax. My other great uncle, Billy Downey, he was the first black club owner of a club in the 70s east of Montreal. So in the 70s in Canada, there was no black person that owned a bar, a club, a lounge in any province east of Montreal and anywhere in the country. And then my great uncle, Billy Downey, he was the first black club owner, and he had like legendary people would come through his club. It's called the Arrows Lounge, like Teddy Pendergrass, Ike and Tina, Bill Withers, like Miles Davis, like legendary like black artists and musicians would come and play at my uncle's club. The Downey name, it holds weight, you know, like, and the Downey name has definitely, you know, left its mark in Canadian history in many different areas. I grew up Dundas West and Bloor, right? Perth Avenue, to be exact, P Block, in between like Dundas West and like Lansdowne and Bloor area, the junction, what they call it, right? So I went to junior high, a school called Swansea Public School. So, you know, Swansea Muse, little, you know, co-op housing area where a lot of the black people live. Like, you know, those are my friends in junior high. When I moved to Toronto, I always took French. I was in French immersion since like kindergarten. And so I always had to go, even though I lived in the junction, I always had to go to schools that weren't necessarily that close to where I lived because there weren't very many French immersion schools in the area. So for, like I said, junior high, I went to Swansea. For high school, I had two options. It was go to Runnymede Collegiate or Jarvis Collegiate. I chose Jarvis simply because the very last month of grade 8, I got into beef with my black homegirls at Swansea, and they were all going to Runnymede Collegiate. And so I said, fuck that. I'm not going to Runnymede Collegiate. And I ended up going to Jarvis, which is all the way downtown. And then that was also what I thought was cool, because I was like, all right, and I get to go downtown to go to school. You know, I have to get on the subway, go live downtown life every day, not knowing the world that was going to put me into, because Jarvis at the time, you know, it's close to Rosedale, Forest Hill, all them areas. So it was predominantly Asians and the rich white kids that went to Jarvis. My mom was an Army brat, so education was always like number one at the core, top of the list. So I had no choice but to stay at Jarvis, right? So who was I in high school? I was an athlete for the most part. I played every sport: basketball, softball, volleyball, track and field. Like literally every sports season, I was on a team. And when you're the black kid that can play good sports at a predominantly white school, you end up playing on every sports team. You know what I'm saying? And when you play sports at school, you're kind of like grouped into like the popular kids. But I was also, because of, you know, my mom just, you know, fighting for everybody and advocating for everybody, although I was part of like what you would call the cool popular kids, I was friends with everybody. You know, I was a peer mentor. So like I was a peer mentor for like the grade 9s and 10s throughout high school. I hung out with everybody. I was in like a lot of the other like academic programs in the school as well. So I had my core group of friends, which we all played the sports and, you know, went to all the cool parties and stuff, but I was cool with everybody at my high school, you know? In the back of my head in high school, I always told my friends that I was going to work in the entertainment industry. I said I was going to work in film. You know, I always wanted to make music videos because I was that quiet kid. I always listened to, like, I always had my headphones. This is like when we had Discman and stuff. So I always had, you know, the portable book with all your CDs in it. I had that. That was like my Bible, you know, like that. It never left my side. And I would carry that and my Discman with me. And I was always that kid listening to music. Because even though I was part of the cool kids, I was the quiet one in the crew. I just kept to my own self for the most part. And I would read like Vibe magazine, The Source and all that. And in high school is actually where I touched the camera for the first time. My 12th grade English teacher, Mr. Reed, he was the first person to put a camera in my hand. And every time I'd be in the hallways, you know, teachers like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Because I would always have my headphones on. He'd always ask me like, what are you listening to? And I'm like, this is, you know, the late 90s, right? And I'm like, I'm listening to the new Lost Boys. You know, I'm listening to that new Leaders of the New School. You heard it? And he'd be like, oh, yeah. Check out track number 12. And I'd be like, okay. And Mr. Reed was like, he looked like Tom Cruise to me. Like, he was average, short height, white guy, blonde hair, like that 90s Tom Cruise hairstyle, right? So when he kept saying, yeah, check out track number whatever, I'm like, whatever. If he saw me with like the latest edition of Vibe magazine in my hand, he'd be like, yeah, I read that issue. Check out that article on whatever, you know what I mean? And I would always brush him off. But then one day he told me to listen to a track. It was Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And he was like, yeah, check out track number 5. And I'm like, all right. I put on track number 5. And I'm like, yo, this is my shit. And then I'm like, so the next day I go to him, I'm like, Mr. Reed, like, how you know this stuff, man? Like, who are you? You know? And he's like, I was born in New York and I grew up poor. He's like, I wasn't a rich white kid like a lot of the kids in this school. That's literally what he said. He's like, I grew up poor. I grew up in the hood. And he actually went to school with a lot of the cats from like Leaders of the New School, Tribe, like the, you know, the holy trinity of 90s hip hop cats, Busta and all them. He actually went to school with them. And he was like, so it's cool to see these guys that I grew up with now making it in the industry. And he said he has a son who's the same age as me. And of course, you know, suburban white boys love them some hip hop, especially in the 90s, right? So he was like, if I want to continue to have a relationship with my son, I have to meet him somewhere because he's not going to meet me. He's not going to come to me. I got to go to him. And it just so happens that the music he's listening to is made by guys that I grew up with. And so he's like, that's how I know all of this music. And I was like, all right, I see you, Mr. Reed. So eventually, by the time I was able to take the grade 12 English media class, I took his class because I checked for him. I didn't really care about school too much, high school. I just did it because I was supposed to. I was just all about sports. I got very average grades. and I took his English class. English media was like, I'll tell you all things, so like print media, so like newspaper, magazines, the news, documentaries, like all that type of stuff. And the projects in that class are always cool. Like first project was like I wrote a newspaper article. And he was like, y'all gotta write your own newspaper article. And I was like, I don't know what to write. And he was the first person to challenge me in a way where something clicked in me. He was like, well, don't they write music reviews in the newspaper? And I was like, yeah. He's like, so what's the latest album you listen to? I was like, remember I'm listening to Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation. He was like, so write a review about The Miseducation. I was like, okay. So I wrote a review, you know, The Miseducation was like groundbreaking album. And the one song, you know, hip hop started out in the heart, not everybody trying to chart, right? It was all about how like late 90s hip hop was becoming very commercial. Lauryn was like, we're losing our authenticity. So I used that as like the main song to write my review about how hip hop is becoming a cash cow. He gave me my first A+ I ever got in anything that wasn't gym or art class. I felt so smart. Like, I was like, yo, I'm smart. You know what I mean? I got an A+. Couldn't wait to get home and show mom. Then he entered my article into a citywide newspaper like high school newspaper contest. I got second place. And like he kept challenging me throughout that whole year. Every project we were doing, he would challenge me and apply it to things that I like, which teachers don't really do. And the last project of the year where it's like 60% of your mark, he was like, all right, I taught you guys all the media formats. Now you got to go create your own, whether it's a newspaper, a full newspaper, a whole magazine. And he brought in camera equipment. And he said, or you can do something visual. And again, I was like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, don't they make documentaries about music? And I was like, yeah. So he's like, well, how about we take the theme of your newspaper article about hip hop losing its authenticity and turn it into a documentary? I was like, yo, that's dope. Okay, let's do it. So he put the camera in my hand. He hooked me up with like A&Rs at like Universal Music Canada. This is my first time going to MuchMusic. I got to interview like producers and Master T, who was like a celebrity to any Black Canadian that grew up watching MuchMusic. Master T was like the guy. And I made my first documentary in high school in grade 12 English class. And when he put that camera in my hand, I fell in love. And going to like the labels and MuchMusic, like I felt special, like important. And in that moment, I was like, yo, people actually do this for a living and they get paid to do this. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I was like, now I can't wait to get out of high school. Like I actually graduated high school a year early just because I was so dead set on getting out of high school so I could do that. And I knew that high school and university was the only things in my way to get to doing that for real, you know? So I was like, all right, I took night school, summer school, everything just to graduate high school a year early and get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? I did, because my mom wouldn't. I actually ended up getting an offer to go to school in the States, UConn, University of Connecticut. My mom refused to let me go. So I was still determined to go away to school because on TV, that's what the white kids did. And on the Cosby Show. So I was like, I'm still gonna try to go away to school. And my mom was like, the furthest you can go is back down home to Halifax. So I was like, I'll take it, you know, not knowing what she was doing, like, because I didn't even stay on campus. Like, I lived with my grandfather. And like I said before, the Black community in Halifax, everybody knows each other. So she's like, you can go there because everybody's going to keep an eye on you and make sure that you stay out of trouble, you know? And all I knew was I was going to get to go away to school. So I took it. I went to SMU, St. Mary's University in Halifax. And Halifax is a small town. I love being around my family and culture, but I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there for two reasons. One, it's too small. Now I'm used to Toronto, big city life. So everything down home at this point, and I'm in my early 20s, ready to turn up, and things down there were just moving too slow. Everything, they walked slow, they drove slow, like everything was moving too slow for me. And I just wanted to get out of there. I went to university because it's what I was told to do. I wanted to get out of there so that I could come back to the city and do what I really want to do with my life, which is figure out, at that time, I chose music videos, and I said, I got to get back to the city so I can figure out how to make music videos, you know? So, but yeah, I did go to university, but do I use my degree? Like, no. Oh, my mom was not having it. Like I said, when I graduated from St. Mary's and came back to Toronto from Halifax, the intent was for me to go back to university, and I was either gonna go to Dalhousie or go to Windsor. I came back. I said, nah. A main motivation for that was that summer that I came back. A friend of mine, she works in fashion, and she was going to Toronto International School of Design. It's called something else now, but she would show me like her schoolwork. And it was just basically like her lookbook, like her sketches and all that, you know? And I'm like, that's your homework? I'm like, that's the kind of homework I need to be doing. And she said, you know, my school has a film program. I said, oh yeah? She said, yeah. And so I said, I'm doing it. I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm not going to law school. So I'm still going to go to school, but I'm not going to law school. Because she heard me say I was still going to school, she was like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to study film. Up until that point, my mom had been paying for my education. So I didn't have any student loans, nothing like that, because my mom had started saving for my school the moment I was born. So when I said I want to go to film school, the only words out of her mouth was, I'm not paying for it. That was it. I said, okay, that's cool, because by now I'm an independent, like I'm old enough that I'm a independent, not a dependent. So I was like, I'm gonna get a student loan. Now that I was old enough, I was like, I don't need you to get a student loan. So I'm gonna just go get a student loan and go to film school, you know? She said, I can't stop you. I said, I know. So that's what I did. I got a student loan and I enrolled at the Toronto Film School. At the time it was called the Toronto International Film School. Now it's just called the Toronto Film School. I went there for 3-4 months. It was all right, but it was a lot of school. It was still a lot of reading, a lot of writing. And I'm like, I thought this was film school. Like, when we're gonna like do the cool shit, like make film, right? And they were talking about like real filmy kind of stuff, like movies and stuff. And although I liked watching movies, movies wasn't my thing at the time. I wanted to make music videos. So I was like, you guys are wasting my time. I was like, I need to figure out how I can make music videos. And I took it upon myself to apply for an internship at MuchMusic, just on a whim, literally. Didn't know what I was doing. I just sent in a resume, said I want to intern. And I got an internship at MuchMusic by the fate of God. And I ended up interning at the urban music department at MuchMusic, which is like, but MuchMusic was still MuchMusic. I started interning there in 2003. So this is when Master T had just left. He was retiring from being a VJ, and Namageni took over. Pretty light skin with the big curly hair. So this is when MuchMusic had, it was like the height of like the urban TV world. So MuchMusic had 3 urban shows: Rap City, Much Vibe, which was the live Saturday afternoon show with DJs and guests and all that, and Down Low, which was like the R&B music show that they had. I got an internship there, and that was pretty much where my film journey started, really. I mean, I still think there's value in school because, again, 20 years later, things have changed. You know, technology has changed, education has changed, access to education has changed. But I still stand on, and this is something that I tell even my students that I teach at Remix Project, like I just said, the only way to learn to make film is to make film. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to shoot something, realize it's trash, then analyze why it's trash, and then know what to do better the next time. Then you're going to shoot something again. It's still going to be trash, but not as bad as it was. And then you're going to learn from that, then shoot again, shoot again, shoot again, shoot again until you figure it out. And even as you start to become better at it, you're still going to learn new things as you go along because, you know, art is subjective. There's always new ways to tell the same story, you know, and technology keeps changing. The trends keep changing. Some trends repeat themselves. Some trends evolve, you know. But the only way you're going to learn to do those things is by doing it. That's how an athlete learns to be a good athlete, right? They put up the shot, they miss, they shoot again until they make it. You got to shoot something, and if it's garbage, shoot again until it's not garbage no more. Working at MuchMusic was dope because like when the department that I worked in or that I interned for, because once I got an actual job, I was working in a different department. But because I interned at the urban music department, like we were a whole crew of women. So Namageni was the host. The lead producer was my first mentor, a black lady by the name of Pedal Baptiste. And then Andrea Chrysanthu, who's she's a Greek Canadian. She was the associate producer, and then there was me, the intern. And you know, the music industry as a whole is predominantly men, and working in the urban department, it's a bunch of black men. You know, and they loved it because all the guests that would come through was like, you know, everybody, Ludacris and the Saint Lunatics. They loved it. Like, oh, y'all a whole crew of girls. They're like, yeah, we love it. You know what I mean? Like, because the black artists, they didn't particularly care to come to MuchMusic because it's Canada. You know how Americans, especially black Americans, thought about Canada at the time. Obviously, it's different now, but at that time, it was still, oh, we're going to Canada or whatever, you know? And then they would come to do appearances for the urban shows. They'd be like, oh, it's black people and it's women. All right, cool. You know, like all the who's who of Nelly, like the who's who of hip hop and R&B and black music in the early 2000s was all coming through our doors and coming to the urban music department and chilling with us to the point where the artists were in town, they wouldn't even call like the bosses at MuchMusic. They would just call us directly and be like, yo, we're in town. You guys coming to the party? You coming to the show? You need tickets? What's up? Where we going? You know what I mean? Like, that was dope. Like, it was a dope experience. I got to meet a lot of my, you know, people that I look up to. Like, a lot of my inspirations I got to meet and engage with working at MuchMusic. One of my personal stories is, so I got to meet Hulk Hogan working there, which was amazing. I got to meet a lot of different people working there, and I remember I just basically broke the rules with this one day because I'm like, it's Hulk Hogan. I don't care. I'm breaking the rules. And remember, this was like, remember the days where like your voicemail greeting had to be something, like it was either a song or you had to say something cool, right? And yo, for like 2 years, I won the award for best voicemail greeting because I basically had Hulk Hogan leave a greeting on my voicemail. So when you called me, if I didn't answer, it was like, this is the Hulkster. You've called Cazhhmere's phone. She can't come to the phone right now. So you can leave a message or hang up. What you gonna do? And I was like, so yeah. You know, and if you watch wrestling, you know Hulk was always like, what you gonna do? So that was dope. I mean, I met lots of like famous people, worked like legendary people. Like I met Prince, J-Lo, Janet Jackson, Sting. You know, like I got to watch Sting perform like it was a rehearsal for the live Intimate and Interactive he was going to do at Much, but in rehearsal. So in the show, Intimate and Interactive, like the artist performed 2-3 songs. Sting did his 2-3 songs, and then he just felt like jamming. And so he just kept going. And Sting was like, the distance between you and I right now was like, I got to watch like a live show from Sting, you know? I remember when I saw Prince, I wasn't even working that day. I just was downtown and just came through to check RT and the crew and say what's up. Forgot that Prince was doing a live appearance that day. I went upstairs and there was like so much commotion, like a lot of people in the halls and stuff. And I'm walking down the hall this way and I see an entourage of people walking this way. And I'm like, what the hell is going on today? And then in the middle of this little entourage, I see this short woman with like a body, like she was tiny. I was like, yo, she looking good. And then as they get closer, I'm like, wow, that sexy woman is Prince. Like, and because, you know, Prince had this is when he still had that silky hair, and Prince is small to begin with, you know, and Prince is like very androgynous, right? And so from a distance, Prince just looked like a really sexy woman. And then as it got closer, I was like, wow, the sexy woman is Prince. Okay. One, you got to believe in yourself. I always knew what I wanted to do, you know? So I always somehow felt like I belonged. And once I was in those doors, I would do everything that I could to make it feel like I belonged to everyone else. You know what I mean? Like I always took initiative when I was working at MuchMusic. And as an intern, I remember I was hustling. So, you know, I have a lot of family in the States, so I was traveling down there a lot. I got a lot of family in Atlanta and New York that are connected to industry. So anytime I was down there, I would like find a way to hustle. Like I remember I was visiting my people's in New York one time, and they had connects at Hot 97. So I emailed people's publicists and said, I'm a producer at MuchMusic and I'd like to do an interview. Remember, you know, Rottweiler, producer. It was like, I want to do an interview with Rottweiler for MuchMusic. Got an interview with Rottweiler. Went to the studio in New York, did a whole interview with him. Came back to Toronto, went to MuchMusic, said, yo, I got an interview with Rottweiler. And this is when Rottweiler was like the producer to go to at the time, right? And they were like, you got an interview with Rottweiler? Like, how'd you get that, Cash? I'm like, I got it, you know? And they end up airing it. You know what I mean? I had got an interview with Wendy Williams when she was working at Hot 97. You know, I got an interview with Exhibit because when I was interviewing Wendy, Exhibit just happened to be doing an interview with Wendy at Hot 97. So after my interview with Wendy, I was like, yo, X, can we get an interview? I'm from MuchMusic. And I literally just bring a camera with me, you know, to New York. I did interviews with people in Atlanta when I was visiting my family down there. Like I said, I was basically faking it till I made it, you know, saying I'm a producer at MuchMusic. My emails were always professional. And because I was an intern there, I had the official MuchMusic email. So they didn't think nothing different because they're like, all right, she's emailing from a MuchMusic account. Clearly she must work for MuchMusic, right? And then I would come up here and they were like, yeah, Cash got an interview. And like, I think at times they forgot, like, wait, this is our intern? Like, how did our intern get this interview with Rottweiler, the biggest producer at the time, or Exhibit, one of the big rappers and Pimp My Ride guy? Like, how'd she get an interview with Pimp My Ride, you know? And I just got it. And that's what I mean by I knew I belonged, and so I made every attempt to make sure everyone else just automatically thought I belonged in those rooms. So it was never a thought like, what's the intern doing? Get out of here. You know what I'm saying? I interned at MuchMusic for so long, they forgot I was an intern. And why I did it? Because I made myself fit in so well that one day they came to me and they were like, I thought I was in trouble because like the big bosses came to me and they were like, we got to talk to you. I was like, what did I do? And they was like, well, you've been an intern here for over 6 months. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, legally, you're only allowed to have an intern for 6 months. After 6 months, you have to start, by law in Canada, you have to start paying them or you have to let them go. And I was like, okay. And I thought they were going to be like, we got to let you go. And they were like, well, we don't want to let you go, Cash, but we don't have an official position to offer you right now. So we just don't know what to do because we don't want to let you go, but there's, you know what I'm saying? So they basically were like, we're going to figure this out. And like, in the meantime, we're going to just keep giving you temporary contracts until we find a permanent position for you. And I was like, okay, shoot. Like, I thought they was be like, we got to let you go, you know? And that's what I mean. Like, I was an intern and I worked so hard to fit into that environment that they forgot I was an actual intern until I don't know, whoever looks at their books or whatever was like, why is this intern still here? You know what I mean? When I got my first official contract, Pedal Baptiste, who is the lead producer of the urban shows, she came and congratulated me and she was like, but listen, don't forget yourself, eh? And she was like, this is the best piece of advice that anybody has ever given me as a black woman in this industry is, she said, because you're black and because you're a woman, you're forever gonna have to work 1,000 times harder than everybody else in the room. And she said, black people have to work 100 times harder than everyone in the room. Women have to work 100 times harder than everyone in the room. And you are both. So you're literally gonna have to work 1,000 times harder than every other person in the room. And she said, you're already doing that. That's how they forgot that you was even an intern. But you can never stop doing that. Just know that now that you started it, you're forever gonna have to be doing that. It's like, and she was like, you know, when Forrest Gump kept running and running, like you're just gonna have to forever keep running and you can't stop if you wanna continue to excel and keep climbing to greater levels within this industry. And she wasn't wrong, like ever. To this day, she's still not wrong. Like I teach at the Remix Project and I tell all my students and my mentees that all the time. I'm just like, if you really want to make it in this industry, you're forever going to have to work 100 times harder than anyone else in the room because nobody's going to chase you. I got to where I was at MuchMusic and where I'm at now is because nobody chased me. I did it. I choose to do that work because I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I knew I could do it. I seen what everyone else is doing. I'm like, I could do that, but they're too busy doing it, so they're not gonna pay attention or even stop to think, can Cash do it too? So I gotta show them that I can do it, you know? To always push the ladder down for the next person to come up. I hate to say it, but I've had a lot of advocates help me along the way in the growth of my career to get to the stage of my career that I'm at now. But sadly enough, very few of them were Black, to be honest with you. The two biggest advocates for me in my career that were Black is RT and Pedal, Batiste. You know, they, like I said, Pedal gave me the chance to prove myself in MuchMusic. And I know a lot of that comes from her experience. Like, she worked under Master T when Master T was on MuchMusic. He was the VJ, but also the producer of his show, right? So Extend the Mix, and then it turned into The Mix. That was his show. He produced it as well. He created the show, he produced it, did the VJ, you know, did everything. And Pedal worked under him. And when Master T retired from MuchMusic, they weren't necessarily looking to Pedal to take over as a producer. And Master T was like, nah, let Pedal do it. She could do it, you know, because again, it was, you know, a fellow brother pushing the ladder down to be like, I'm up here, now follow me. You know what I mean? Which unfortunately is not, to this day, something that us as Black people that we do very, very often, or as much as we should, you know? And I'd say that that's probably one of the biggest, you know, lessons that I take with me that I learned from Pedal now that I am in a position to mentor others. I do my best to push the ladder down to make sure that they can climb up after me. And I learned that from Pedal and from RT as well. I don't know what video you've seen online as my first video, but my actual first music video, you can't find it online, which I find, to be honest, is disappointing. I have it, actually. I have it on DVD somewhere at my crib, but it was for an artist named Tone. His full name was Tony Zarelli. And I don't even think that was his last name, his real name, because that's a very Italian name, and this guy was very much Black, okay? It was an R&B song. It got funded through Video Fact at the time. It was still called Video Fact. And at the time, I would just, you know, RT put me onto Video Fact, because like I said, when RT and I were working at MuchMusic, he decided he was going to start his own music video production company. And he's like, I want to take you with me. And I was like, yeah. I was like, what I got to do? And he's like, well, we work at MuchMusic, so we got access to all the artists. So we're just going to go to all the artists and be like, I'm RT. This is Cazhhmere. We work at MuchMusic. We make videos. They know us, so they're going to give us the grants to make music videos for you guys. I said, all right, cool. I think I applied for like 2 years. I was applying for grants, nothing, like ghost silence. And I just like, you know, you just got to keep going at it, keep going at it. Eventually, they're going to remember your name and be like, all right, let's give Cash her chance. And then eventually I got a grant, you know, and it was for, like I said, Tone. The song was called Silly Thing, and it was an R&B song, and at the time Genuine was like that guy. So in my head, I was just writing the treatment as if I was writing the music video treatment for Genuine. It was like, you know, it was the typical like early 2000s R&B vibe. So it's like love story, slow-mo, performance with his like band and a microphone and like a story in between, shot in like a loft, dope loft that still exists downtown. But yeah, I did that video, and because I was interning at MuchMusic at the time, Namageni premiered it on The Download, which was the Wednesday night R&B, you know, R&B format of music videos show. And I felt like couldn't nobody tell me nothing. Like, I was the shit, because I'm like, she was, you know, the VJs, they talk to the camera, like, we got a special premiere going on today. She was like, yeah, our intern, Cazhhmere, she got a new music video, her debut music video she did, and she brought me from behind the camera, brought me on camera, and I got to premiere my music video. and it aired across the whole country, nationwide. Yeah, and yeah, man, that was my first music video. It's been years since I've watched it, but I just remember the last time I watched it, I was like, this video is trash. I directed the video "Oh Canada" for Classified. Um, why am I proud of that music video is because one, I got to shoot it in my home province. You know, it's a rap song about Canada, and I'm Canadian. You know, and um, like I'd say like the whole city came out for that music video. You know what I mean? Like if you watch the video, you remember the video. Like it's like hundreds of Canadians, all in red and white. You know, like flooding the streets. Like we got to flood the streets of old downtown Halifax for that video in the middle of January. And Halifax is right on the Atlantic Ocean. So in the middle of January in Halifax, it's cold, cold, right? And those people came out and they were there for hours supporting us. Um, that song ended up being used as like an official song for the Olympics that year, the Winter Olympics, which was in 2010, and the Olympics were here in Canada. They were out west in Vancouver, so that was big. It's like a rap song about Canada the year that the Winter Olympics are in Canada, and so for the whole 2.5, 3 weeks of however long the Olympics are, that song got played on repeat all the time on all the news stations that were talking about the Olympics, you know, doing the highlights of the Olympics, and then they would throw to that song, and then they would play the music video. It got nominated. It was the first time I got nominated for Director of the Year at the MMVAs. You know, when the MMVAs meant something. They don't even exist anymore, but at the time, it was a big deal to be nominated for Director of the Year. At that time, I was the first female director in like 10 years to get nominated for Director of the Year. The last female director before me that had got nominated and or one was a good friend of mine, actually, director Wendy Morgan. But like I said, it had been years before that a female had been nominated in the Director of the Year category. We also got nominated for Hip Hop Video of the Year that year. I lost to Drizzy, but it's Drizzy, so you know it's okay. But it was just a big year for like a rap song about Canada to get that much attention. You know what I'm saying? So much so that the Junos that year, they recreated the music video for the Junos. So Classified performed at the Junos that year, and they recreated the video by having Class perform outside with a mob of people behind him, right? Like as they do in the music video with him performing to camera while they were going into the arena or the stadium, wherever they were hosting the awards. That video had a lot of impact on Canadian culture that year, and it was all from something that I created in my head, you know, which was dope. So I think that's the video I'm most proud of. And like honorable mention, which not really honorable mention, but tied, would be the first video that Jordan and I did together, which was a song called Feeling Fine. And it was because the first time I got to go film in my hometown of Halifax and in our neighborhood, a community by the name of Uniacke Square, a historical black community in Halifax, right? It's the hood. And to be able to, I brought down a whole film crew from Toronto to Halifax in the hood. MuchMusic came out and did like a, you know, much behind the scenes. So like the TV crew was there, the film crew. And for able to bring that to my community where, you know, they don't get looked at like that. And the kids of that community don't really see that a lot. You know, it was like, it was special for me to, like I said, to be able to bring that experience to my community and to motivate the kids. Like a lot of those kids now are like working in music or like doing film and things like that, you know, because they remember that experience of not just being in the community, was in the music video. So not just remember the experience of being in the music video, but seeing the experience of the video being made in their home neighborhood and MuchMusic TV crew coming down there. So that's very special to me. Director dies has kind of been like a motto I live by. for a very long time. Like I have it tattooed on my fingers, my body. I'm a storyteller. I'm sitting here telling you all these stories. You know, I speak like a storyteller. I can't just give a straight, direct, short answer. I've had experiences where, you know, in my music video career, like I literally almost died, like doing what I do, you know, for the hustle of it. And I didn't. It was like a car accident, really bad, totaled my car. But coming out of the experience, I kind of thought that, you know, maybe God was telling me it was time to put the director hat down and go use my university degree and get a real job, you know. But after some thought, I realized that the message was the opposite. I need to go even harder at what I'm doing because I could have died. I should have died. I totaled my car 4 times. The car landed on the driver's side. I had to climb out the passenger side window. My car was totaled. It was leaking gas, everything. All because I was on tour with Jordan. We were on tour with Danny Fernandez, and we were in Montreal. But in the middle of the tour, I had to get to Toronto for a day to shoot a music video. And I drove by myself. Long story short, accident happened, totaled my car. My mom, just out of Belleville, my mom came and got me, drove me into the city. I dropped my mom off and drove to my music video set. Straight from the accident. I had mud in my hair, on my clothes, everything. Drove to the set. In the midst of shooting the video, a grip put a light next to a sprinkler. And the light set off the sprinkler. And it rained indoors on my set. And it wasn't like we were just shooting in a location as is. Like we're in a studio, so my art department had to build sets. And it rained on my set. And I'm like, shoot's done. I'm like, I almost died. It rained indoors. The shoot's ruined. Maybe God's telling me I should use that university education I have and move on. While I'm freaking out, my crew rebuilt the whole set in like an hour. And what took them which also is like, how is it took y'all half a day to build this before, and now y'all built this shit in an hour? Explain that to me. But anyways, we went on with the shoot. It ended up to me being one of my personal best videos I've ever done. And then I realized God was trying to say like, nah, like you're here for a reason, and your reason is to tell these stories and do this art, and I'm gonna keep you here. So that's where Director Die comes from. For me, what it was is the music industry changed. You know, a lot of that had to do with the internet and access to music and the videos. And the music industry just became a very indie industry all around. You can be indie and make the music yourself because of access to Pro Tools and MacBooks and GarageBand and all of that. And the creation of music videos became very indie because of access to technology, right? Which is, like I said, all my first music videos were shot on film. You know, it's very hard to get access to that. It costs a lot of money, and you gotta be professionally trained to operate all things film related. Then technology changed that. You know, DSLRs became a thing. Everybody owned a camera, and people labels started spending less money. Management, everything changed. You know what I'm saying? People were just like, the value of what we do as music video directors, people started to devalue it, to be honest with you. They were like, well, why do we need to pay you directors of that era all this money to make this video when I can just go get my boy Jerome with his DSLR and we can go shoot a music video in the parking lot right now? You know? And I'm like, all right, so go get Jerome and y'all go shoot your music video in the parking lot. Like, I'm a professional. Like, I'm a filmmaker. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have time for that. And I got older. I'm a grown-ass adult now. Like, by the time that shit happened, I'm like well into my 30s, you know? And I'm like, I got adult responsibilities. I got adult bills, you know? Like, your little $2,000 to shoot your music video can't even pay my rent. So after, you know, over 10 years at the time of doing that, why would I devalue myself now? Simply because your guys' standards changed. If you want to accept those lower standards, that's fine with you, but not me. I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a videographer. You know what I mean? I'm a filmmaker. I'm a director. I don't operate no camera, you know? So if he can go pick up a camera and shoot it, by all means, let him go do that. You know what I'm saying? So that was part of it. But also, I grew up and I'm a storyteller. You know, I can not tell a story to save my life. And the stories I wanted to tell got bigger than fitting into your 3.5 minute song. My first film project was a documentary, and it was inspired by, like, when I was working at MuchMusic, you know, Much also had other programming besides like music videos, right? So like they had documentaries and things like that, and I worked on a few documentaries when I was at MuchMusic. Like one was about like sweatshops, which is still a thing, but it was a major issue that was on a lot of people's agendas in the mid 2000s, right? So I was like, yo, I like this documentary stuff. So I started getting into documentaries. My first one was a documentary I did called Deeply Rooted with CBC. And it's about my family, but it's also about like what I've already told you about, you know, being a ninth generation Canadian and what that looks like as a black person. Because in Canada, as a black person, people ask where I'm from. I say I'm Canadian. Then the automatic next question is, where are your parents from? I say my parents are Canadian, like I already told you. Then they want to keep going, like, you know, where are your grandparents from? So on and so forth. Then they'll be like, no, where you really from? And I'm like, I'm Canadian. Like, I'm a ninth generation Canadian. I'm from fucking Canada. Where are you from? You know what I mean? And most of those people, when I say, where are you really from? They're like, well, my grandparents are from wherever. And I'm like, exactly. So stop fucking asking me where I'm from, because I'm a ninth generation Canadian. Where are you from? You know what I mean? So I did the doc to really shut people up when they ask me where I'm from. Like, you want to know where I'm from? Here, go watch this documentary. Leave me alone, you know? But then also just to really change people's perspectives on what a Canadian family looks like, and what a black Canadian family looks like, you know? Because being Scotian often comes with a lot of negative stigma. Just like being a Jamaican Canadian can come with a lot of negative stigma because of how we are portrayed in the news and in the media. And I wanted to show people that, you know, being a black Nova Scotian doesn't mean we're all criminals and pimps and hoes. Yeah, that may be one part of the narrative, but there's also this other part of the narrative, which is, like I said, I've got people in my family that are literal history makers that have helped contribute to the history of this country, you know? And to also ultimately remind my family of who we are, because as black peoples, because only one perception of us is portrayed so much in the general media, we tend to fall into that, you know what I'm saying? And believe that there's only one way that they see us, and then we just tend to fall into that. If I had to compare myself and the type of filmmaker I am to another filmmaker, it would probably be Spike Lee, simply because he's one of my favorites. Probably the favorite for me. But Spike, why I compare myself to him is because Spike, although he tells stories about the black experience for the most part, he's always told stories about one main character, and that character is the city of New York. New York is always the main character in every film that Spike has ever done. They just are stories about New York in different times and eras and in different areas of New York. And a lot of them are based off of like his own life experience growing up in New York. And for me, as a filmmaker, music videos removed, the majority of the films that I create personally are all about my black Canadian experience, and particularly about the experience of being from Halifax, growing up in Halifax, and what that looks like from a black Scotian's perspective. And all the films that I make are about black people. You know, like, that's just what it is. Yeah. I want to make films about the Black Canadian experience, you know, like we watch so much American Black films that as Black people in Canada we relate to, because like I said, as Black people, as different as we are also very similar, right, in our experiences. And we watch plenty of Black American films that we relate to. We watch plenty Black British films that we relate to as well, because we share a similar experience to them, despite the fact that they're on the other side of the ocean. But there are very few Black Canadian films that we can say we share that experience with, because one, they don't really give us the opportunities to make a lot of those films. And I find that when there are Black Canadian films, or I'll say this, Canadian films that feature Black people, they're not very authentic, because they're not, most of them are not made from people of us. You get what I'm saying? And that's why I changed it from Black Canadian films to Canadian films that feature Black people, because Black Canadian films are made by people of us. Canadian films that feature Black people are not made of us. That's starting to change. You know, I know a lot of my peers are we're getting the opportunities to make those type of films, and that's my goal. Like, I want to make the viewing experience for Black Canadians more enjoyable, so that we don't always have to seek out American Black films or British Black films to find stories that we can relate to, when there are plenty of Black stories right here in Canada that need to be told. I want people to experience Black life in its truest form. I find that the industry, because I won't just say Hollywood, but the industry itself, they're obsessed with Black trauma. Everything, it's slavery or it's current Black trauma, you know what I mean? Like, why does it always have to be one type of Black story, which is always focused on Black pain that they want to tell? Like, Black people love just as much as they hurt, you know? Why can't we tell more Black love stories? You notice how in the States there's, you know, those movies they do with like older comedians where they all get together and do like their grown-up reunions, and they either go to their old camp that they went to in high school or in college or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like every few years, like Adam Sandler and all them white comedians, and then they throw Chris Rock in there for good measure, you know what I mean? They do that little film, right? Like, why can't Black people go on high school reunions, college reunions, and make them kind of movies? You know what I'm saying? Like, I reunite with my high school peeps every now and then. Why can't we show movies that do that? Like, why can't Black people go on family vacation to the cottage, you know, and make a movie about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want people to experience through my stories is Black life in its truest form and in all of its forms. We have funny moments, we have painful moments, we love, we lose things and people just like everybody else, but the industry is just always so focused on telling one type of Black story, which always focuses on Black pain. I'm over that. I'd say probably like when I was making my transition from music videos into other areas of film, it wasn't easy, you know, because again, it's like starting over, all over again. You know, I had made a name for myself in the music world as the music video person to go to. And then when things all started to change, you know, and I was like, I need to get the hell out of here and jump into something else. I'm stepping into a world where these film and TV people don't know me. They know me, but they don't know me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know me because they all seen our videos, but they just look at us as those video kids that made a bunch of nice looking music videos. But that's not filmmaking, especially the older generation of music video directors like myself and the ones that came before me, like RT and Director X and all that. Like, they've never looked at us as like filmmakers. So that was hard, you get me? Because it literally was like starting over. It took a lot of like humbling to swallow pride and do that journey. But it ain't nothing I ain't been through before. Like I said, especially me being a woman making music videos for mostly dudes that come from the streets. If I can get through that, I can get through any of this other stuff. So the Real World Film Festival, first of all, they've been supporters of me for a very long time. They were one of the very few festivals that actually played music videos. So I've been in the festival numerous times in the past for music videos. But they're also not just a festival, they're an organization their mandate is to help uplift filmmakers of color and put them in positions to elevate their filmmaking and creative careers. So they were actually very helpful in helping me to make the transition from music videos into the narrative filmmaking world, actually, through a lot of programs and cohorts that they have and initiatives that they do to help get us in those doors, because they know how hard it is for Black filmmakers and other minority filmmakers to just get into those doors, regardless of if you already come from a filmmaking background like myself, or you've just started from narrative and want to get into that from the jump, right? So I did a short film in 2019 called I Remember the Footprints in the Snow, and is the first short film that I wrote and directed myself. They were the first film festival to accept the film into their festival. And it got a lot of great reception, like when the film premiered at the festival, it was in a short film program. So there were numerous other short films playing in it. But to be honest, most of the people were there to see my film. A lot of it is due to my friends and family are very supportive. So they pretty much bought up all the tickets to go see it anyway. So there wasn't a lot of room for other people to come watch it anyway. But all the other people that watched it, it was a great reception. A lot of people came up to me afterwards and your film was very, touching, and it hit people's hearts. It's a dramatic film about mothers and daughters. And to the awards, every film festival has awards and things like that. And I knew it was possible that it could win an award. But there were also films by other great filmmakers that I know. Some of them are my friends that were playing as well. And I was like, oh, so-and-so's film is playing in this? I was like, oh, man. You know what I mean? Damn, their film is pretty good, So we're on Zoom, we're all watching it, and the awards are going, and there's multiple awards for short films and then multiple awards for the feature-length films. And the lead actress in my film actually won the award for outstanding short film performance. And I was like, yeah, all happy. And then the film for cinematography went to another film, and I was me and my DP were on our phones as we're watching it, upset, because I was like, yo, you should have won that award, because I was I don't care what anybody says, you shot the hell out of this film, And somehow I thought that all the awards were given out. So I was me and my DP were talking again on text. He's like, damn. He's like, so you didn't win? I was like, nah, man, I didn't win anything. And I was kind of bummed out about it. And then all of a sudden I hear, now we're going to give up the award for outstanding short film. I was like, oh shit, there's one more award that they're giving out. And then all of a sudden, I was just caught up in that. And then they said my film. They said my name and my film. They're like, Cazhhmere Downey for I Remember the Footprints in the Snow. And my mouth literally dropped. How in a cartoon when my hoe just boom right down to the floor. That was my true reaction, because I was one, like I said, before the awards, I even knew that it was there are films that I'm it's a great film. It could easily go to them. You know what I mean? They deserve to win that award if they win it. And so there was that. And then the fact that I thought that they gave out all the awards already and I didn't win anything. So when I heard my name called, I was like, oh, I won. Shoot. It was it's when you see the person on the televised award shows and they're surprised and they just don't even know what to say. They forget who to thank and all those sort of things. But it was cool. It was special because, like I said, Real World has always been a supporter of me as a filmmaker. Even through my music videos. And then when I made the transition into narrative filmmaking, they were a great support system for me and for my first short film that I had written and directed to win their award for outstanding short film. It meant a lot. And, you know, like I said, I wrote that film for my mom. Like, it was dedicated to my mom because it's a film about black mothers and daughters and how, like, multi-generational trauma gets passed down through generations of black moms and daughters. So it was special. It was like a full circle moment in a sense. You know what I mean? Tyler Perry. I've always said that. Back in the day, when I would mention people would be like, who is like role models, people I look up to, and I say Tyler Perry, people would laugh. People don't laugh no more because, you know what I'm saying? Like, look what the man has done. This man in his mid-30s was homeless, sleeping in his car. Okay? Now the man owns a whole movie lot. And I tell people this all the time, I don't think you understand what we mean by it. He doesn't own a movie studio. He owns a whole movie lot. It's just like when you drive through Atlanta on the highway, there's highway signs, like how we say Gardner. This way, there's highway signs that say Tyler Perry Studios. This way, on this highway. Tyler Perry's Hollywood movie lot is so big, Hollywood pays him rent. Because now, a lot of movie and film and TV production gets done in Atlanta now. And you know where they're going to shoot it? Tyler Perry. Hollywood literally pays this man rent. Okay? But yeah, he was homeless in his car in his mid-30s. And you know what made him that money and power? Medea. Just like Steven Spielberg had to make E.T. and Indiana Jones for all the white people and stuff, Tyler Perry had to make Medea for us, which I appreciated because my mom loves Medea. It's like there's black life. Remember I was saying that? Like you got to make all forms of black life, not just one. So you can't just make all the serious black life films like Spike Lee. You got to make something for us to laugh at. And at the end of the day, yeah, there may be some stereotypes in the Medea films, but who don't got a big mama like Medea? I know I had plenty of them, still do. So what's wrong with it? You know what I'm saying? But like I said, like back in the early Medea days, people used to laugh when I'd be like, I look up to Tyler Perry. If somebody could mentor me, it'd be Tyler Perry from then. And best believe if I could get somebody to mentor me right now, it would be Tyler Perry because the man owns a whole movie lot. I'm trying to have Cazhhmere Studios on the Gardner. You see, go this way to the Cazhhmere Studio. You get what I'm saying? Like, or Director Die Filmworks, go that way on the highway. That's what I aspire. And Tyler Perry can teach me how to get that. I know X gets a lot of credit, but I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves, to be honest with you. I think he deserves way more appreciation and praise than he gets. There's a director, his name is Clement Virgo. Clement, I think he should get more praise than he deserves. He's done amazing things for film here. Also is, you know, broken through the gates of like film in the States, TV in the States. Like he was like an executive producer and director on the show Greenleaf that used to air on the Oprah Network. Black female director by the name of Dawn Wilkinson. She started as a filmmaker here in Canada, and now she does a lot of American TV. She's directed like episodes of How to Get Away with Murder and Lock and Key, which I think Lock and Key airs on like Netflix, I believe. But like she's out there doing big things on like big like American TV shows. But a lot of Canadian people don't know her name. When I say Dawn Wilkinson, they don't know who that is. You know what I mean? There's plenty more, you know, but those three are probably at the top of my list. One, if you're in this industry to make money, quit right now, like today, this hour, this minute, just quit because you're in it for the wrong reasons. Like I didn't become a filmmaker to make a lot of money. Like if I was choosing a career to make a lot of money, I probably would have ended up going to law school. I'm a filmmaker because it's all I know how to do is tell stories. That's it. So if every day you wake up and all you think about is singing, and then when you go to bed, all you think about is singing, then you're supposed to be a singer, girl. And I'm like, basically that's what my advice, you know, is like, don't be in this to make money because the money may never come. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because that's not what it should be for. You become a filmmaker because you have stories that you want to tell, and you want people to watch them and for them to inspire people and to impact people, you know? So like I said, like, if every day you wake up wanting to tell a story, and when you go to sleep you think about telling stories, then you're supposed to be a filmmaker. Ooh, what's up, everybody? My name is Cazhhmere. I'm a filmmaker. I just want to give a shout out to The Hustle Never Dies.